In terms of the normal posture, so everyone knows like humans are bipedals and they walk on 2 feet, yeah. And the best position for a patient to have is to have a head over the pelvis. However, life is a kyphosing event, and as the person grows, the kyphosis keeps on increasing. Now let's understand what's the zone of economy. So as you see, as we have evolved from primates to Homo sapiens, there is a decrease in the amount of locomotion energy, which we can see from this chart. In humans also, as we have started walking, if we walk more with tilting towards forwards or backwards, that means we are going out of the zone of economy. The amount of energy what will be required will increase. So we need to know what is the zone of economy for walking, and also the body tries to use its joints like the spine and the hip to come back and stand erect. Now what are the compensatory mechanisms which the body uses to negate the kyphosing event of the spine? Is first of all, the patient tries to get his cervical lordosis increased, decrease the thoracic kyphosis. The patient tries to do lumbar hyperlordosis, or there is a listhesis, there is retroversion of the pelvis, and there is flexion of the hip and knee joint. Now, in spite of these compensatory mechanisms, the body will keep on kyphosing forwards, and it will keep on failing forwards, and the SVA, that is the sagittal vertical axis distance, keeps on increasing. Now why bother with whether the spine is decompensating or not decompensating, and what's the problem if the body keeps on falling forwards? Is first of all, it causes a lot of back pain. Second, the disability caused by this deformity is as high as in some patients like cancer patients. The quality of life is very poor. The patient sometimes gets a lot of weight loss because of the increased energy for walking. There is a lot of sacroiliac pain. There are chances of hip dislocation, and there are chances of increased fall because the balance goes haywire. Now what are the goals of surgery in adult spine deformity? Is first, we need to decompress the neural elements and negate the pain generators. Second is, we need to restore the spine balance, and third is, we need to obtain fusion in the spine, whichever levels we are fusing. Yeah. Now these are the types of osteotomy what in spine surgery we can do, and based on the complexity of the osteotomies, right from simple facetectomy, we can go to multiple vertebral body resections, and depending on that, we can correct the amount of deformity the patient has. In terms of the adult spine deformity, what are the steps we need to take? Is first, we need to identify what are the levels of the surgery we need to do. Second is what surgery we need to do, and how much amount of correction we need to do so that we don't overcorrect the deformity. Now for this we require the sagittal spine parameters. Now if you can see this photo, if you don't take an holistic view of the whole elephant itself, some might feel it is a wall, some might feel it is a rope, some might feel it is a tree. But if you see in a whole, that it looks like an elephant. Similarly, we need to see for the global parameters of the spine and not just a lumbar spine or the cervical spine when we are trying to treat a patient. Additional to that, then we go to the regional parameters, and we also need to keep in mind that there are a lot of compensatory mechanisms which have been chipped in to decrease that kyphosis of the spine. Now the main spine angles what we are going to study today is lumbar lordosis, pelvic incidence, sagittal vertical axis, pelvic tilt, and sacral slope. Now let's come to lumbar lordosis. This is where we are quite comfortable in. Is you start from the upper end plate of the L1 to the superior end plate of the S1. It ranges from about 40 to 60 degrees, and the maximum lordosis is at the L5 S1 followed by L4 L5. Now if you see the this photo, you can see that about 62% of the lordosis comes from L4 to S1 only. So only these two levels give maximum about 62% of lordosis, and the superior, that is the proximal lordosis, is just about 38%. Now let's come to pelvic incidence. It is one of the most important sagittal parameters. It is a fixed pelvic parameter. How do you calculate it? You calculate it, you make a line 1 from the center of the femoral head to the center of the superior end plate of the S1, and the line 2 is a perpendicular drawn from the superior end plate of the S1, and that angle is the pelvic incidence. Now a lot of times, if you in real time, if you try to draw this diagram, your femoral heads are not aligned. So what you do is, you make a circle of one femoral head, the other femoral head, and from the center of those femoral heads, you draw a line and you take the center of that line, and from there you draw it to the S1. That is the line 1, and then again the perpendicular to it is the line 2, and then you make an angle out of it. Now it ranges from less than 40 to sometimes more than 60. And if you see a patient or a person who has a bigger butt jutting out, they will have more pelvic incidence compared to a person who has a smaller butt. Now what is the significance? Now the most important thing is, a lot of people just get bored, pelvic incidence hai, pelvic tilt hai, but what is the importance of this pelvic incidence is, first of all, a patient who has a high pelvic incidence will have a more lumbar lordosis, and second is, we need to have an harmony between the pelvic incidence and the lumbar lordosis, okay, and that harmony has to be a mismatch of less than 9 degrees. Again, a patient who has a high pelvic incidence, the apex of the deformity, suppose if you are going to do a surgery, a pelvic subtraction osteotomy, in that a high pelvic incidence patient will have a high apex of deformity, so you have to go a bit higher for doing the pelvic subtraction osteotomy. Now again, for orthopedic point of view, what is the relevance of pelvic incidence and lumbar lordosis is, first of all, a high PI patient will come far more late with an adult spine deformity than a low PI patient, because if you have a high PI, you will have more lumbar lordosis, and because of that you will have more compensatory mechanisms for the kyphosis. If you have a high PI patient, you require more lordosis while doing a surgery. What I mean with that is, when you are dialing in more lordosis in the rods, or you are putting in more lordotic cages, that is important if you have a high PI patient. Third is, if you are doing a T-lift surgery on the lower levels, that is the L4, L5 level or L5, S1 level, you have to dial in more lordosis compared to if you are putting a cage on the higher levels, that is L2, L1 or L2, L3 levels. And lastly, if you have a PILL mismatch, suppose if somebody is like, no, I'm just going to put a straight rod even at L5, S1, what might happen is, you will have an accelerated adjacent degeneration. Now in this chart we can see that if you have a PILL mismatch of 0 to 10 degrees, okay, the positive predictive value to have an adjacent level degeneration is just 6 degrees. However, just going out of that range from 11 to 25, the positive predictive value increases by 12 folds to about 75%. Now again, the global parameters we'll be discussing sagittal vertical axis distance, which is a distance taken if you make a center point of C7 and drop a plumb line down and take the distance from the posterior superior edge of S1 to that SVA, that is known as the sagittal vertical axis length. And we have two more, that is a pelvic tilt and sacral slope. Now pelvic tilt is generally from 13 degrees plus minus 6 degrees. It is measured, you draw a vertical line from the center of the femoral head and the same line from the from the center of the femoral head to the midpoint of the S1 end plate, that is the another line. So can I have a pointer please? Somebody has a pointer. So the pelvic tilt is here, you can see This gives a spatial orientation of the pelvis in the body. And now what is the relevance of pelvic tilt is, suppose you have a high pelvic tilt, then your sacrum is going to be more horizontal, and if you are doing a THR in these patients, that is going to cover the acetabulum is going to cover more of the posterior part, and your extension is going to be limited, and there is a high chance the patient might have an anterior dislocation of the hip. Now we will come to the sacral slope. So it is measured from the same one, the line 1 is the end plate of the S1, and you take an horizontal line to it, and that is the sacral slope. And calculation wise, pelvic incidence is equal to sacral slope plus pelvic tilt. Now what are the aims and targets for a adult spine deformity surgery is, first you need to have a SVA, that is a sagittal vertical axis distance of less than 5 centimeters. The pelvic tilt should be less than 20 degrees, and you should have a harmony between the pelvic incidence and lumbar lordosis, which should be less than plus minus 9 degrees. Now why this is important is, from this chart you can see that if the SVA is more than 5 centimeters, the ODI scores jump to 42 from 28. Similarly, for PILL mismatch, if you see that if your PILL is less than 9 degrees, the ODI scores are 26. But if you are more than 9 degrees, it doubles to about 41. So if you are outside this range, the ODI scores increase significantly.
Dr. Vatkar, you have to wind up.
Yeah. So lastly, so these are the other important parameters is P1 pelvic tilt, it is less than 10 degrees. Then T1 slope is about 15 to 25 degrees. This is kind of an angle similar to pelvic incidence for cervical spine. And lastly, you have T1 spinopelvic inclination, which closely correlates with the functional outcomes. Lastly, just one case, this was a patient who was operated before and had a failure of his lumbar spine. Here you can see that the SVA is about 11 centimeters, that is 110 mm, and there is loss of lumbar lordosis. Actually the patient has got kyphosis in the lumbar spine. The PSO was done at L4 and the sagittal vertical axis was maintained, and the SVA was restored to about 4 centimeters. Thank you. Thank you.